It's Shawn Lam here for Streaming Media Producer at NAB 2015. We're at the Blackmagic Design booth. I'm here with Dan, and we're going to be talking about the Micro Cinema and the Micro Studio camera. Now, you guys have a lot of products you announced here at NAB, but these are the two that we're going to be focusing on today. What can you tell me about this camera?
Well, this is our Micro Cinema camera, and this is a camera that was designed with a specific purpose in mind. We were really thinking about how people had been using some of our previous cameras, like our 2.5K and our pocket camera, and they'd used them in drones, underwater housing, cars where they'd put them in the corner, and we thought we really had an opportunity to design a camera where this was a little more specific, when we could have this smaller, tighter body that didn't necessarily need all the functions of those cameras, but that could work in those environments really well. One of the first things we did is we looked at our pocket camera, which is a great handheld camera, and said, how can I make that even smaller and even more applicable to other environments? So this Micro Cinema camera is basically an upgraded version of the pocket camera. It's still HD, still 13 stops of dynamic range, still using the Micro Four Thirds. The big thing you're going to see on this body is it's got this nice expansion port. And what that's for is so that we can basically kind of use hackable protocols to say, look, I want to put it up in a drone, and I want to have the analog come out to a remote control and adjust my starting, stopping. Nice little body, very hackable. I can put these around underwater housings, put them in drones, put them in the corners of cars, and it can just basically focus as a head that can then go off, go to streaming, go to encoding, or just go to recording, because it does record directly to the SD cards as well. So the main point, small HD recorder with the nice expanding port to be able to do extra hackable fun things with it as well.
Now, you've got this here in the booth. It's on a tripod head, but in general, you know, the application for this, it's unlimited, really. But design-wise, there's not many controls on the back, and that was done on purpose, is that right?
That's correct. One of the big things you're going to see here is there's no actual screen on this. And one of the things we've seen as people would use them in those environments is, you know, they'd put them in the corner of the car and they'd be looking through the windshield to try to figure out, is it in focus and do I hit the buttons behind it? So what we wanted to do is we wanted to put all the transport controls on the front, so I can literally tuck this into the corner somewhere and hit record, or I can go ahead and jump through. Now, if I need to make any adjustments to the camera, I do want to go ahead and use a monitor with it. So you'll go out the HDMI and you'll go ahead and go to a little monitor. A nice flexible camera doesn't need the monitor, but it can use the monitor if we want to do any adjustments, but otherwise, just hit record, nice tally light comes on, you know it's recording.
What's the internal codec?
So on this, we're going to do our same, much like our pocket camera, we're doing ProRes internally recording, or we can do a raw recording on this as well, but it's just going to these nice little cost-effective SD cards.
And one little touch I like about this here is a full-size HDMI output. I mean, a lot of companies, they have the micro or the mini, and it just means you got a non-standard cable there. So
we had used the smaller HDMI on our pocket camera, and we decided we really wanted to go with the full-size HDMI. It's still HDMI, so we're so spoiled by SDI, but the full-size HDMI we're looking forward to have out there as well.
Now, last year you brought out some studio cameras that pair very nicely with the ATEM line of video switchers. But you've also got a micro edition, so can you talk us through that one?
Yeah, we have another addition to the micro line. We figured we had this great body. One of the things that we saw last year was there were people that were really excited about that studio camera because of the price performance that it provided. But in particular, I keep walking into studios that are doing streaming from multicam shoots, but they don't have operators. They're not going in pulling focus and panning and zooming. They literally have 6 or 7 cameras that are focused around, going back to a switcher and just doing streaming there. So we wanted to create another small size body with the SDI in and out to be able to have the color adjustments that you could do, has the nice tally, but again, no screen, so we don't have to worry about if they're an operator. And we have the same expansion port there. That expansion port's nice because we can do things like do the iris control if we want to add a B4 lens mount on top of the Micro Four Thirds. So we have that great ring adapters you can add there, but then you lose the iris control. Same expansion port, being able to use things like a B4 lens, have that nice fast parafocal lens on there if we want. So another great product. Whereas this camera's $995, on that one we can do actually a 4K version for $1295. So still very affordable and very practical.
Now I want to bring up that B4 mount because that's not insignificant. There's a lot of need for, B4, it's a universal mount. It's very popular in terms of the broadcast lenses, the ENG lenses, and it's something that possibly is missing from the production line that you have, or the studio line right now. How much feedback did you get, and what was the thought process in terms of making sure that B4 was on there?
It was really interesting for us because when we created the studio camera last year, we had created it for a market segment. We thought, well, a lot of people that are using our ATEMs are using smaller kind of HDV cameras right now. The studio camera is going to be a big upgrade for them, but let's use this very cost-effective and highly adaptable micro four thirds lens. Well, what happened was that market was pretty happy, but this much larger market said, but hey, I would totally use that camera if you could use a B4 lens on there as well. Now you can get the adapter and you can put the B4 on there, and you can keep your color shading, but now you don't have that iris adjustment capability. So it was kind of a, what do you want more? Do you want a lens that's not parfocal, or do you want a lens that you have the parfocal capabilities and the zoom and servos, but you don't have the iris adjustments via the remote back to the ATEM? So having this on the new micro studio camera, get the names right, is a great thing because you have the choices of, I can either use the micro four thirds or I can put the B4 on there and still gain all the functionality I'd like.
So we're here in front of the Micro Studio 4K camera. There's a lot of tight integration with the ATEM that's been built in. Can you walk us through some of the features here?
Sure. The big thing, like our normal studio cameras that we came out with last year, is to be able to do the talkback, the tally, and the color shading. Now, because this isn't going to be really driven by an operator, the biggest thing is to have that tally, which we have on the front, and all of that color shading as well. Now, we do have some talkback capability as well if we'd like, but really this is going to be something that we figure there's going to be lots of people that are putting these around. We're going to color shade them back in our ATEM, and we're just going to have an operator, we're going to have someone that, or a set that's going to be there, and someone driving the ATEM to say, cut the camera 1, cut the camera 2, and just go back and forth. So a really cost-effective way of being able to do 4K back to the ATEM, do all of our color shading, and have a great studio camera here. And of course, even though it is a 4K camera, we can still, of course, do 1080 as well. So people don't have to feel like, well, boy, I'm streaming this, I'm not doing 4K. The nice part is to have that 4K resolution, but being able to go back and do 1080, just even better quality in the end product.
Okay, and one of the biggest differences between the studio and the cinema is that this micro studio doesn't have the internal recording capability.
Correct.
It's a studio camera, whereas the cinema camera does have that SD card recording.
Then that's the big difference, is because we're not doing the recording, we can actually use a 4K sensor in here. So 4K sensor but no recording, or HD sensor with recording, and that's how we can kind of differentiate these two cameras.
Thank you very much, Dan. This has been Shawn Lam for Streaming Media Producer at NAB 2015. We're talking about the Micro Studio and the Micro Cinema cameras at Blackmagic Design.